Welcome to the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Your hosts, Bill McKenna, Paul Robert, and special guests discuss ideas for creating alignment in your sales and marketing efforts and ways to accelerate growth. Now let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. I'm Bill McKenna. My co-host is Paul Robert. I know, Paul, we do it this way every time, but say hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul. Bill, you sounded like you were really trying to be a DJ, you know?
I was, yeah.
A deep baritone voice, talking slow, you know?
I definitely do that. As a matter of fact, my voicemail, so many people pick up the phone and they think I'm a voicemail. So I'm like, hi, it's Bill McKenna. And they're like, hi, and they don't realize I'm actually a real person. So as you guys know, go ahead, Paul. What was that?
Oh, no, I was going to say, let's introduce the guy with the cool microphone here. That's who people want to hear from today. So.
Yeah, well, I was just going to do that. So here we go. So, hey, Mitch Rutledge, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Paul. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and you do have the award so far for the coolest microphone on our podcast. So people who are just listening, you're missing the visual of this.
I like that. Oh, totally. Yeah.
This makes me look cool to my son with my disco colored microphone that I have. So try to stay hip and cool with the young kids here.
Yeah. So how old is your son that you're trying to be hip and cool to?
He is 17. He has just started his senior year in high school. So the countdown begins. All those mixed emotions of that. But yeah, no, he's. I got to do everything I can to look cool to a 17-year-old.
Any success tips you could share, Mitch? I think all of us would greatly value
I was going to ask you guys.
Having been through that a long time ago with my teenage kids, I don't think you're going to win that battle. I hate to say it, Mitch, but there will come a time in the future where hopefully that will pay off, right?
I'm hoping.
Yeah, there you go. So, Mitch, it is really great to have you today. I had a nice conversation with you, and I was impressed with what you guys are doing at your company. So why don't you give us a little background on you and what you're doing there, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. So, I'm the CEO and co-founder at Vertice AI, and we are a growth analytics solution provider that's really exclusively focused on community financial institutions today. We launched the company a little over 3 years ago, and I have two other co-founders that I've known for many years. Prior to launching Vertice, I worked for one of the large AI and advanced analytic platform providers that's deriving and delivering solutions to the Fortune 500. And so I spent about 15 years in the advanced analytics space, really helping big companies create these advanced analytic workflows and the early days before it was called AI, right? That's what we were really doing. So I have experience in that, and we got into the credit union world by we started talking to some credit unions, and we found that there was a desire now to be more data driven, and the challenge that they have is they don't have the budgets or the people that the Fortune 500 and the big five banks have. And so that's where we really sort of ideated that, can we create something that is consumable for smaller community FIs, gives them the kind of value that they need, but they don't have to go hire teams of data scientists. And so that's sort of, what I would say the first principle of what we said, which is bring the experience we have of creating these advanced analytic capabilities for big organizations. Can we put it into a consumable, approachable format for smaller institutions, for really business users, right? The marketing teams, the strategy teams, the retail teams. So that was sort of the impetus of it. I've been in technology my whole career, primarily enterprise software for different industries. Did a lot of work in the retail and consumer goods space. And, I think that's really translated to community FIs, because they have those same retail needs and wants, right? I mean, they're members or customers, they have emotion, and we need to connect with them, and we need to understand their needs and wants, and they change over time. So I think that translated of being able to understand how retailers who've been doing, personalized marketing and that kind of data-driven approach for many decades, was a good launching pad to bring that to credit unions.
Hey, Mitch, I thought it was interesting how you said that you were with the big banks and now you're with the community FIs. It used to be 20 years ago, there was a clear demarcation between those two, and smaller banks and credit unions didn't compare themselves to the big guys, but the consumers do today. They're considering us all as one. What are you seeing as the reason behind the shift there? Why are the smaller guys more open to some of these strategies, some of these tools and resources that previously only the big guys wanted to provide?
Well, I think a lot of it comes back to the consumer demands, right? I mean, we part of our mantra is we live in the Amazon, Spotify, Netflix era, right? We're all using it every day across all generations. The expectation is you're going to give us recommendations, and there need to be good ones. And so that translates. I think, that community FIs have to respond by embracing approaches and solutions to make them more relevant in this attention economy that we live in, right? I mean, we're fighting for those eyeballs and ears to gain the attention of our members and our customers, and we need to we really need to understand how to reach them, and that's about understanding their needs and wants first and foremost, and then responding to them with personalized engagement.
Yeah, one of our recent guests that we had on was very good. Ann Legg, you may have heard of Ann. Ann from Thrive, and she's great, isn't she? She's got a great. I love her. I love the way she talks about building this data journey. So let's talk about that a little more specific. So where do you guys fit into the data journey? Like where does your product fit into that journey?
That's a great question. So we are really focused on, we say empowering credit unions to know, grow, and measure every member. And so we are typically taking data that the credit unions already have from the core or from the LOS, could be from other solutions as well, and turning that into product and service recommendations for the members and prospects, right? How do we, when we first understand their behaviors based on how they use their accounts, how they transact with their cards, how they pay their, their bills, all of those help us understand the behaviors and needs and wants of the members. And then we can turn that into consumable recommendations for, across the credit union. So marketing is usually a big consumer of our solution, but also lending teams, strategy teams. Do we have the right products? The retail teams, right? When we think about at the branch level, are certain branches doing, seeing more products and services than others? And, if we're not seeing the product adoption in certain branches, is that because there's not need, or because we need to educate the branch staff on those products? Is it a more competitive market? Do we need better signage? So all of those are really helping us personalize how we engage with members. So it's not just about, can we send a more personalized email? It's really about enterprise, across the entire organization, strategic understanding of the needs and wants of our members, and then responding to it across the whole organization.
It's amazing, Mitch, how it seems like if we had just sell one more product to every member that we interact with, think about the impact that would have on the financial success, the viability, the growth of our credit unions. And so your tool seems invaluable in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so go ahead, Mitch.
I was just going to say one more thing related to so just to kind of close out where we fit into that stack. So really distilling that understanding. And then the final piece is, when we give recommendations, we are not replacing the existing platforms, right? So today we don't send emails. We're not the execution side of it. We're fitting in between. How do we distill all of that data that we have and then feed it into, they probably have email marketing or digital banking or, agencies that are doing the execution upon that. We want to make those more efficient and more effective in the execution that they do today. So, we're typically, I'd say the turbocharger to some of the processes that they do today. A lot of people may not have anything today. It's we send emails to everybody all the time. And so we're going to give them a much more efficient and personalized outreach program, and do it, and again, without you needing data scientists, right? That's the key. None of the, our credit unions, our smallest is 30 million in assets, our biggest is 6 billion. Even the bigger ones, hiring teams of data scientists is a challenge. So we want to make it an approachable, consumable solution for those business teams to distill this understanding for personalizing member engagement.
So they can use this data any way they see fit, basically, right?
That's right.
You're able to align the data for them and let them decide based on execution or internal use, or even Paul, in when you talk with a lot of the clients you work with and helping those teams understand the best opportunities that are in front of them. I would assume there's some ways they can use that data again when they speak to someone that even walks into the branch.
Here's just a quick shout out to our sponsor, ironistic.com. Hey, in today's world, everyone knows the importance of having a great website and having an integrated digital marketing plan. If your credit union, community bank, or any other company is looking for that help, I can highly recommend ironistic.com. Check them out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the more resources we can provide to those frontline employees, the better chance they're going to have of being successful. Now, we need to teach them how to use it, right, Mitch? And we need to teach them, how to actually verbalize the opportunity and so forth. But it's a resource, and it's a tool that is going to position them to be far more successful than they otherwise would.
Yeah. So with all the data silos that are in credit unions today, that's one of the things I talk about all the time, right? It's the missed opportunities. And unfortunately, you have a lot of different cores, and you have a lot of different marketing platforms that people could send stuff from, whether they're using a HubSpot or whether they're using some third-party CRM product or whatever they're doing. Are you finding then that the integration of that data, is that a challenge for you depending on who it is, or is it pretty much you're able to do it with almost everyone? Or, tell us a little bit more about that.
We think we can do it with most everyone. I wouldn't say we've hit every single core. Some are easier than others, but we've really tried to architect it to make it not this huge lift, right? I mean, one of the things that I will say is we're not a new data warehouse, right? We're not trying to fill that gap for these organizations, right? We need data, but we need the data that can give you better understanding of members' needs and wants. And so we want to only, we don't need thousands of data fields to do that. You can really get a good understanding with, who your members are and who your prospects are with a fairly, reasonable data set around the members, the accounts, and the transactions that they do. And then, our belief is data is a journey, not a destination. So let's start with something that can give you better recommendations. And can we add to it over time? Sure. Survey data and, online behavior data for sure. But, to say we need thousands of data elements and we need it all before we can get started, candidly, that was, again, one of these kind of core principles when we founded Vertice is we don't want to make this another big data project for them, right? They've been through this. We know all the stories about that. We want to get value quickly, right? In weeks, not months. And if we only need, fairly typical core data, we can get them that, and we can then grow over time. So, I have horror stories from my past, right? In past lives where we would spend months and months and approaching years before we said, we got to get the data right, more data. And, projects just they lose so much steam and momentum, and you get new people, and then it's just never got anywhere, and it just gets put on the shelf. And we don't want to be, those kinds of solutions. So we're very much about small amounts of data can give you great impact. Let's do that, get the quick wins, and then continue to grow over time. And we can, again, add new first party or third party data to even make it more effective and efficient over time, right? It's a journey.
Love that. Love the quality over quantity approach. Hey, Mitch, we've talked about current members. What about prospective members? I was intrigued by one of the case studies on your website about successes that you're having there with a credit union. But how does that work? And what should a prospective credit union think about in regard to what you can bring to the table that maybe they're presently not doing?
No, yeah, Paul, thanks for asking. We started in focusing on existing member wallet share growth. And then last year, obviously there's a big demand for we need to get new members and many different ways to do that. And so we thought about how can we create a unique way to help credit unions do more efficient new member acquisition. And we launched a new capability, we call it Vertice Acquire, that is, we leverage data from Experian in a unique way to, learn from your existing members, but then go find the best set of prospects in the Experian data set that are really, going to be great future members of your credit union, right? That's the unique way that we think that we're doing it by. We can learn on your existing members and then use that to do a much more efficient and effective new member prospecting lists. And so we've had some great success thus far, right? This year we're launched with several of our existing credit unions that are doing that. And the response that we saw, as you saw in the case study with Education Credit Union, is that we are helping them distill the funnel, right? I mean, the old ways of new member acquisition was we quote, buy a list, right? So we bought a list that someone said is the good list, right? My joke is those are the Glengarry leads, right? From that famous movie, right? But we don't know. Did they ever look at your membership to say what makes a great member at your credit union? All the credit unions we talked to say, no one ever asked us, for our data before we gave you those great leads. So that's what's unique about how we're doing it. And that allows them to really narrow the funnel, right? New member acquisition, I think the average cost that people are still throwing around is around $500 to acquire a new member. And so that's an expensive proposition. And so if we can narrow the funnel from say, hey, here's a list of whatever, 20, 50, 100,000 prospects, to say, no, these are the 6, 8, 10,000 that show high propensity for a checking account or for, a HELOC. And now we can be really focused on who and what product. And then again, what's the message we want to use with them, right? I mean, I think of HELOC as a great example, right? If we can understand why, now we can think about the message, right? Am I really doing home expansion? Is it debt consolidation? What is the reasons that I'm doing that? Now we can have a much more relevant, personalized engagement with those members. And that's what we think we're able to do with this unique approach to learning from the existing members and then scoring prospects.
Yeah, so that would be like getting down into the data a little bit more, which I love, by the way. So for instance, you use the home equity example. So we could not only know they have a home equity loan with us, I'm talking about existing members, they have a home equity with us, but they used it for home improvement, or they used it for consolidation, and they used it in this time frame. So by creating those lookalikes per se, you're able to then go out to the credit bureaus and say, find me people that do this. Find me people, and then bring that data back to me so I can use it in whatever I'm going to execute. Is that correct?
You got it, Bill. That is exactly, and that sort of brings it back to, when people say, what is the AI? That is the power of the kind of AI models that we're using today, right? And we I don't think this is, unless you guys want to get deep into it, into the kind of models that we're using, but that is the power of, we can do that at scale now. To your point, Bill, is how do we think about processing lots of those different features and data elements across the existing membership to then build this, truly really advanced multidimensional lookalike, right? It's not the old of they're this age, they're this zip code. Now we're looking across hundreds of attributes to do that kind of lookalike modeling.
Wow, what a powerful tool. And I can imagine, Mitch, that for a credit union that's looking to expand, to grow into a new market, what a great way to target prospective members in those new markets instead of going in and casting a wide net like we've been doing since the beginning of time.
Flyers in every mailbox, right? We can get away from the flyers in every mailbox.
As Bill says, physical mail still works, right, Bill?
It does. It does. But it's expensive. I mean, it's good. It's good marketing, but the problem is it's a high cost per unit. So you have to find the balance between direct mail still does work, but having a better list to do that direct mail to, instead of doing 20,000 pieces, you do 2,500 and you see a much higher return.
You got it. That's exactly what we're doing, Bill, is we're distilling everybody says, of course, but how do I distill that list from 20,000 to 2,500? And that's exactly what we're doing for them.
Yeah, that's good. So they're able to take that data that you've sliced and diced and put into the with your clients and kind of, again, use that as they need to. which I love. So can they directly, right from that data, like pull a list?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Which in some cases that's huge, because they may have a core that, all these cores talk about this CRM light they have, and their CRM light is really light and and really complicated for people who aren't used to doing it. Unless they have like you said, someone who's really good with data and someone that has the time, it's very difficult for them to do anything. It's just bandwidth. People just don't have the bandwidth. So I love that. I think that's a really good starting point for a lot of credit unions.
Yeah, that we tell the story, the way that we hear marketers say, hey, we want to start a campaign, whether it's prospects or existing members, is they go to someone in the data team and say, can you pull me a list of all the people that look like X, right? And the data person says, sure, I'll get it to you next week. And a week later, they get the list and the marketing person looks at it and says, okay, this is good, but we want to add this and change this and whatever. And the data person says, okay, I'll get it to you next week. Another week goes by and they get to the marketing person. They say, oh, this looks great, except one more thing, right? And the person says, okay, I'll get it in the queue. I'll get it to you next week, right? So weeks go by. And our goal is to make them self-service, that marketer can do 10 versions of that list based on, do we want to do this? Do we want to do this? Do we want to drive this? What's the size of the opportunity, right? And we're helping them quantify the potential, growth. What's the asset growth going to be? What's the deposit growth from this campaign going to be? Because we have enough data that we can give them some feedback on that. And so now they can be much more self-service in not just building a list, but being strategic about what are the opportunities if I do it one way versus another way, right? And come to the executive meeting, right? And have a conversation and be part of that strategic growth process to say, we can run this for HELOC, which, the spring HELOC program, but the reality is we might have a bigger opportunity if we go after, cards or auto or whatever it might be. And really, what is our membership? What are the needs and wants? So helping that, those folks be much more strategic about where are the opportunities for growth for our credit union versus, well, it's spring, let's run the HELOC program because that's what we always do.
Yeah, for sure.
Mitch, what are some of the misconceptions that people have? I mean, AI is a big concept for a lot of credit unions, a lot of CEOs, a lot of boards. You mentioned it, and they get the deer in the headlights look. What are you seeing? How are you positioning it, Mitch, to really overcome any misconceptions that might be out there?
Oh, yeah, great question, Paul. I'm going to bring up two. I think there are probably many, but I'm going to hold it to two for now. I think one is this belief that, we need data scientists to help us understand and turn this into something. The reality is, I think it's much more approachable than it's ever been, that you don't need, teams of data scientists to go do this. Partners can, help you do it. And I think even some of the business teams can do it. And then I think the second, which I kind of alluded to, which is we need all the data first, right? We've got to build this big data, warehouse, lake house, whatever the term of the day is, before we can start doing anything. I'm not discounting that there is, not value in those, but that we have to wait and build this pristine, clear data asset before we can start to get any value from AI. That is, I think, if we wait for that, we will be waiting for a long time. And so our belief is get started now. You have plenty of data. Can it be cleaner? For sure. And that's, again, part of the journey that you're on. And, you don't need to go hire big teams of data scientists to be able to get some value out of the power of AI today.
Yeah, I could see that right away. For instance, I don't know how many times I've talked to a client who wants to increase checking accounts, or let's use that again as an example. And they say, we want more checking accounts. We want a deeper relationship. We want the PFI. Well, we know darn well that there's certain factors that contribute to when people will not use you as a PFI relationship. So digging into that data, looking at that data, the time that people have been members, the amount of accounts they have, the products, what their balances are, when you can bring that together and you can identify in a group of 10,000 members, 2,500 really quality prospects, again, we're getting back to the fact that now we can target and segment in a way that most credit unions cannot do it. They just don't have the ability to do that.
exactly right, Bill. And I think one of the things that we've seen some of our clients are able to do is now when I distill this to a much more consumable, manageable list. Now, when I go to the branches and say, hey, we're going to do outreach, or the call center is going to go out and do some outreach, if I give them a list of here's the 50 for your branch, sure, we can call 50 people this week. But when you say, hey, here's all the like handing them the white pages, right? And say, oh, go start calling, there's always a reason that they're not going to do it, right? Well, we're too busy or whatever. But when we can really give them these focused prospect lists, we see that they're, able to do that outreach more effectively and efficiently.
And I think, Mitch, just them knowing the science behind it, the process that you laid out, it raises their confidence so much before they even pick up the phone and do their outreach. So it really positions you for optimal success to have this kind of data for them to work with.
Yeah, and we'll wrap this up in a couple more minutes here, but just thinking, Paul, about what you just said, and Mitch, I love what you just said, that the 50 people in the branch that are their really good leads, that they could be outbound calls. They also could be being aware of who those 50 people are. So when they do walk in, we know a certain amount of members do walk in every week. We might see 4 people that we go, ooh, when they walk in, we need to talk to them. They're like really good prospects. And wouldn't you think, Paul, that having even a simple list, I know a lot of people don't have a front-facing CRM that pops up when Paul walks in and says, oh, Paul has got these 3 things and does that. Well, some do. They're getting there. But even something simple to begin with is something. It's better than what they have now.
Well, and it's proactive, guys, and that's what I really love about it. We expect salespeople who have never been salespeople before, by the way. They've always been service people. We expect them to be able to react immediately to an opportunity, whether it's an outreach on the phone or those 4 that come into the branch, Bill. And that's, for most people, that's unrealistic. And so what you're talking about here with the data that Mitch can provide is we're going to be able to be proactive and prepare our people for really capitalizing on those opportunities. Mitch,
and
I know with that.
Go ahead, Mitch. I think he asked you a question.
I would absolutely agree. And one of the things that within our solution, we also help with the messaging. And so we can actually generate content. And one of the things that we will output is a call script. So we can actually help with whether it's the call center or the branch folks is, okay, we've identified this target list. Here's the starting points for the message of like, what are the key attributes of this product and why do we think it's relevant? So we really do try to help with that. I agree with you, Paul, and we're hearing lots of credit unions talking about how do we transition from just being service only to having some sort of sales, and it's a very fine line. And you all know much more about how credit unions are thinking about supporting those needs to be a little bit more forward, in doing some selling. And so if we can give them some of the tools and capabilities to make that, more efficient, right? Yes, they have to be, conscientious in how they have those conversations, but it does start with having the right data around who and what and how we want to engage those members and prospects. And so we think we can absolutely be a part of that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. And, for those of you that are listening to this podcast, probably my sister and brother and a couple other people, gotta keep it fun.
My
right?
wife will listen too.
Yeah, there you go.
Worry.
There you go. Well, my wife won't listen. She gets so tired.
But your 17-year-old son won't.
No chance.
But let me get back to my original thought. So those of you that are listening, we know that different credit unions, different sizes, have different data journeys they've built, right? We know that it's not one size fits all for anyone. But I think the takeaway from today is that if you need help aligning that data, Mitch and his team would be a good solution for you to check out. Would you agree, Mitch? So, Mitch, tell us how people can get in touch with you if they're interested, and how they can connect.
Sure. Thank you, Bill. Yes, we would love, like I said earlier, we are, working with credit unions of all sizes. What makes the common thread are the ones that want to be more data driven and how they know and grow their membership. And, doesn't matter if you're 30 million or 30 billion, you're somewhere on that journey and are making a decision to do that. And so, would love to talk to you more about how we try to, again, not make it a huge data project, right? We want to get you actionable outcomes in weeks, not months and years. The best way to get in touch with us is come check out our website. It's www.verticeanalytics.ai. You can hit me on LinkedIn, Mitch Rutledge, or the Vertice site on LinkedIn. We're pretty active posters there around all of the things going on, webinars that we're having and whatnot. But really appreciate you sharing a little bit about what we're doing. And we're excited. There's so much opportunity with the movement to support this kind of data-driven growth and meet the needs of the current members and the future members. There's, I just close with one of the stats. I think a recent poll said 74% of consumers want their financial institution to provide a more personalized experience. That's across all generations, right? So we used to say, oh, just the youth. But I would say that, even, the boomers now have an expectation, right? They're living Amazon, Spotify, Netflix every day now, and their expectation is as well. So I really think this is not about just attracting the youth. It is important, but I think all members and prospects are going to expect more personalized experience. And we have the ability to do it today.
Yeah, totally agree. And most credit unions, the breakdown of their membership tends to be older. So the boomers and the other people using them, this is super important if we want to deepen those relationships. So Mitch, thanks so much for joining us today. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed you, and probably what's going to stick with me more on this one than anything is how I can be cooler to young people. And I'm not sure how I can get that microphone. Yeah.
Cisco microphone is the answer.
Yeah, I'm going to work on that. But thanks again. And hey, that'll be a wrap for today's podcast. We'll see you next time on the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Take care.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate the time today.